The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome from the General Assembly and the City of Richmond. I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Cox Communications. As we begin the 2014 session of the Virginia General Assembly, we are very pleased to have a number of guests from the Chesapeake area today. Chris Jones, congratulations, sir, on becoming Chairman of Appropriations in the House of Delegates.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be back, Woody.
Good to see you. Senator John Cosgrove, you've been elevated to the Senate. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Woody. I'm not sure if it's elevated or just moved over.
Now, I know you took the seat of the retiring Senator Harry Blevins, so you have to run again in 2 years. I do. And I got to tell you, Harry left very, very big shoes to fill. So good. Delegate Jay Leftwich, our newest member in the House of Delegates. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. It's good to be here, and appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk with you along with these other distinguished gentlemen.
Great. Delegate Barry Knight, good to see you, sir, one of a handful of members from the agribusiness community.
Absolutely. Glad to be back and be with you again, Woody.
Good. Delegate Leftwich, I'd like to start with you since you are the newest member of this delegation.
And they've made that clear.
Tell us how it's been the first couple of weeks for you here.
It's been a tremendous experience. I'm humbled and grateful to have the opportunity to serve with the help of these guys and some other folks in the General Assembly. The House in particular. They've made the learning curve a little bit easier. It is a big learning curve. Been assigned to 3 committees and some, in my opinion, some pretty substantive subcommittees. And so grasping that material and trying to contribute has been a challenge, but it's one that I welcome.
And I know you're a practicing attorney and you were chairman of the local school board. Tell us a little bit about the area you represent in your constituency.
Well, I'm kind of surrounded by Barry and Delegate Knight and Delegate Jones, but my district is really kind of the heart of what we call Grape Ridge, and half of Hickory. And if you've ever been to the Outer Banks, you'll pass right through the Grape Ridge and Hickory areas. So geographically, that gives folks a little bit of an understanding exactly where we are. I grew up there, lived there for 51 years. I have 5 children that attend the public schools there. I've been practicing law right in the heart of Grape Ridge for about 25 years, and it's a terrific place to raise your family, live and work. And again, I'm fortunate that having lived there for so long and people knowing me the way they do, they entrusted me to come up here and represent them.
Great, and I know you have an interest in education, so we'll get to some of those issues later. But Senator Cosgrove, what's going on in the Senate? And I know there's still a couple of slots yet to be filled there.
we still do have 2 unfilled seats. Delegate Linwood Lewis was certified as the winner of the 6th district, but that's by a 6-vote margin. So there's going to be a recount, and there's also going to be a vote on January 21st in the 33rd district in Northern Virginia. So we really don't know who's in charge. Right now the Republicans have the majority, but that may or may not change depending on the outcome of these elections. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in a position of being like a man without a country. I don't have any committee appointments yet because they don't know where to put anybody right now.
Right.
So, but I still get to vote on the bills on the floor. So,
Great.
And it's an honor to serve in the Senate.
Right. And Chairman Jones, I think you're a little bit busier than you were this time last year.
That's probably a good assumption to make. It's been a little different. My wife asked me on Monday if I was really doing any work because I wasn't going to meetings, because I used to have a whole lot more subcommittees. And we've got a great team. We got 6 new members. Appropriations, Barry is one of them. So we've got a wonderful staff, and I'm really excited about the opportunity. I'm humbled by the opportunity the Speaker has given me, and it's a big responsibility. And but I've got a lot of folks around me who know more than I do in many areas, and it's going to be a team that's going to get us there. I've already sat down with Senator Stosh and the head of finance in the Senate, and we've already had a couple meetings, and we're trying to hit the ground running to do the state's and the people's business.
Well, congratulations and condolences on your appointment to the Appropriations Committee.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I've lobbied hard to be on the Appropriations Committee because being a small business owner, I know the dollars and cents, and I think that my constituents sent me up here to do the business of the state. And I couldn't be more pleased to be on the committee where Delegate Jones is my chairman, because we are such good friends and we are both small business people, and I think we kind of think alike. So I'm on 4 committees this year, and Chairman Jones tells me that I'll have more to do in appropriations than the other 3 committees put together.
I'm sure. Well, what's going on back home in terms of the economy? Because everyone was hard hit statewide, you know, back in 2007, 2008. Have things improved?
Well, they seem to have improved. Of course, you know, we're fairly lucky by being in Hampton Roads and having such a big presence with the military there, particularly Oceana Base, which also has Dam Neck and our SEALs there, and I totally represent that area of Virginia Beach. And then I represent some of the outlying areas of interest, which Jay Leftwich and Delegate Cosgrove do. So we've been insulated pretty good there, and I've got some tourism, which has been even on the uptick, and I have some of the agribusiness in my district. So my district has been maybe even a little bit more insulated than some of the rest of the state has.
Great, great. And Delegate Leftwich, I know you have a great interest in education.
Yes, sir.
Because of your work at the local school board there and the number of children you have, obviously. So talk to us a little bit about education reform. There's been a lot of talk about reforming the standards of learning and things of that nature.
Well, the first bill that comes to mind is one that was the chief patron of is Tag Greason, and that is I'm serving also on the the Standing Education Committee, and then the subcommittee on education reform, and that's probably in part because of my background on being on the school board in Chesapeake. And it may not be the final fix, but it's a step in the right direction. And the focus or the thrust of that legislation, which I've asked TAG if I could co-patron, and he agreed to let me do that, was to reduce the number of SOL tests from 34 to, I believe, 26. And so that will hopefully keep our students focusing on curriculum more so than just regurgitating material on a test. And if I have a moment, and tell me, I don't want to take too much of your time, but it really became clear to me, not so much through my school board activity, but through my parenting activities, what these SOLs were doing. I have a sophomore who is taking his first SOL test. His first AP class. Mm-hmm. And he was having trouble answering the questions. And so I went to him, I says, well, can't you find the page that the answer's on? He says, well, they tell me it's on page 100, but I don't see it. And what he was looking for was a big, bolded word that stood out for him to fill into a blank. And so I had to sit down with him. I actually bought an extra book. We both highlighted the material related to the question, and I had to walk him through the process of learning the material and creating his own answer, extrapolating the information from the book. And so, and that was, he's been doing that for 10 years. And so we need to reverse that trend and get our students to be able to comprehend, read, and formulate their an answer that's just not a big letter bolded in a textbook somewhere.
Great. By the way, I was talking to Delegate Yost the other day, and turns out he's the youngest member of the House of Delegates, and he actually took an SOL test. And I was talking to you, Delegate Jones, about a project I had with my granddaughter in Spotsylvania, who was complaining to me about the SOLs, and so she was working on a merit badge on civics, and so we turned that into an opportunity for her to write a letter to the editor about it. But tell us your views on what's happening in terms of education reform.
Last year we had appropriations. We were looking at the funding aspect of the different tests that we have and the impact it has on students and also the teachers. And too many times you look at what the outcome is and not really the progress that's made during a year. So we tried last year to start the process of looking at the progress that's made in a classroom. You get a teacher that's teaching in a division or a school that's got high achievers, all are going to do very well in the SOL. So you get another teacher that might be teaching in a different school division or different school, and they've taken them from this competency to here, they should be really compensated and recognized for the progress that's been made from the day they entered the class till the day they left that class going to the next grade. So we've tried to focus on that and trying to make sure that we're being smart in how we use our assets, because you know, our economy is still not where we'd like for it to be. We're growing about 2/3 of what we typically do. And normally Virginia will lead the nation out of a recession. We're trailing, which we normally do not do. And we're about 1% behind our collections for the year, which is about $180 million. So, you know, we've got a lot of challenges. We've got, like I said, we've got a lot of expertise in the body. You know, Jay being a former you know, chairman of the school board, those things are really, that's what makes a citizen legislature work the way it should.
And Senator Cosgrove, I know you have some strong views on education, but I also want to give you an opportunity to talk about the necessity to diversify our economy, and also what's going on with the high-rise bridge.
Well, thanks, Woody. First of all, I have to say that Jay used to be the chairman of the Chesapeake School Board. Now my legislative aide, Christy Craig, is the chairwoman of the Chesapeake School Board. Okay. So believe me, I hear it every single day about education, either from Jay or from Christy. Certainly, Chesapeake has wonderful schools. They're all accredited. And Jay deserves a great deal of credit for making a lot of that happen. Getting to the high-rise bridge, the high-rise bridge is a critical artery for transportation in Hampton Roads. I have a budget amendment in to put another $10 million into the EIS and engineering study for the high-rise bridge. The high-rise bridge is 50 years old, and those bridges were built to last 70 years. And so hopefully Chairman Jones and Delegate Knight can see fit to try to put that amendment into the budget so that we can look at that critical arterial in Hampton Roads. You cannot get from Virginia Beach to Suffolk without going over the high-rise bridge. And it is a critical pathway. And I'm hoping that we can find the dollars. I mean, you know, everybody knows that the dollar is very, very scarce this year. And we have to scrape and claw for every penny that we want in this budget. But I'm going to work very closely with Senator Stosh and Delegate Jones and Delegate Knight to try to make sure we get that funding. The other thing that the budget amendment I have in, Chris, is $138,000 a year to set up a Veterans Benefits Center in Chesapeake. We have over 75,000 veterans in Chesapeake who have to travel quite a ways to try to get help with their veterans benefits. And I'm hoping that we can find this in the general fund to just find those positions. The city is willing to provide the bricks and mortar, but we need those folks there in Chesapeake for our veterans.
So, Delegate Knight, it sounds like this high-rise bridge renovation is sorely needed, and it's important to the economy there.
Well, it certainly does. And last year, when we looked at this massive transportation bill and package that we passed last year, and the returning members, we all supported it greatly. We had a budget amendment approved last year, $5 million for the environmental impact study or survey, and we're trying to get a little traction by going along, and we certainly would like to see if we have room in the budget to keep it moving forward with this $10 million, because I do represent southern Virginia Beach and southern Chesapeake, and if we were to have a hurricane, that would be a major hurricane evacuation route, and we would be crowded out by the folks coming from the Outer Banks. So we need to move the project forward in a diligent way. You know, maybe not too slow, but in a diligent way. So if we have funds this year, it's certainly going to be some funds that we're going to look at putting in there if we can afford it.
Now, the public-private partnership that is still dealing with a little bit of controversy around the Midtown-Downtown tunnel has been in the news recently because the tolls will be effective, what, next month, I believe?
Yes.
And I guess that's still a controversial matter.
Well, it is a controversial matter. it was taken out of our purview of the legislators to initiate this contract. And some people view the contract was maybe not as good negotiated as it could have been. And I've read that Governor McAuliffe would like to lower the tolls. Well, somebody's going to have to pay for this bridge. It's just a simple fact. And the money's going to have to come from somewhere. So they're either going to kick the can down the road a little bit, or we're going to have to take some money from someplace else to help pay for it. And I look forward to engaging with my Chairman of Appropriations, because he's going to have a big, big part in this to see if we lower the tolls, how we're going to pay for lowering the tolls.
Woody, if I might, Chairman Jones has been one of the most knowledgeable on this, so I'd like to hear his comments.
Absolutely. I know there was litigation there that was unsuccessful, but I know you've been really involved in this issue.
Yeah, it was a terrible contract that was signed by the former secretary, is bottom line. And it was taken out of our hands. And we've had several bills the last couple of years trying to deal with the whole PPTA, the Public-Private Partnership Act. And the Governor McAuliffe, has actually put $84 million towards reducing the toll for the next 3 years, because there's no capacity that's been created as of today. And that facility was actually, when we told it, when it was told, not we, but when it was told by the former administration, 4 years it would have been before we had increased capacity. And for those watching at home, when the toll begins next month, the money we have spent to delay the toll for the 13 months that the governor, we refused to put that money in conference 2 years ago. I just thought it was not a good expenditure of our funds because it was a bad deal done by the administration. We could build segment 1 of expanding 64 on the peninsula from Bland Boulevard to Fort Eustis.
Really?
$115 million, yes.
Wow.
So because of the terrible deal that was signed, and done by the administration, we're saddled with it. Now, don't know what we can do to minimize the tolls moving forward after the construction is completed, but I'm looking at legislation that's going to, put back with a different body the control of the tolling in Hampton roads, where it's locally controlled, where you have a vote as a citizen to get rid of somebody if you don't like what they've done, as opposed to having a bureaucrat in Richmond making that decision. And the way they did it when we were out of session. So we couldn't prevent them from doing it. And we have a similar situation, with 460 to a lesser extent. But very troubling to us. What we're trying to do is grow jobs, grow the economy, and we think that's going to have a negative impact because of the level of the tolling that's going to be for those going back and forth between Portsmouth and Norfolk. And back to John and Barry's point and Jay's point on the high-rise bridge, that's why it's so important that move forward as quickly as possible, because you get another way in and out of Hampton Roads and around Hampton Roads. We would look to go to 8 lanes, I believe, on the high-rise bridge. Yeah. And the number of vehicles that traverse that structure today is staggering when you look at the numbers.
Refresh my recollection. How long is that contract for, and what was the rate of return?
58 years. We tried, excuse my French, to blow it up.
Right.
But we couldn't blow it up in the process because it had been. The Constitution says we cannot injure a contract, so they had entered into a valid contract. And 3.5% guaranteed increase each and every year, and they get up to a 13.5% rate of return on the private equity. So it wasn't a good deal for the Commonwealth in the way it was structured. The facility is needed, but it's just very disappointing to all of us that we were pretty much locked, and we weren't informed.
Sure.
They were instructed not to talk to us while they were moving forward and putting the deal together, which is the most egregious part of it at the end of the day, because we could have had something to say during the process.
Senator Cosgrove, I take it your ears still burn from constituents every day about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so many emails. I represent from the Atlantic Ocean at Knott's Island down where Barry is, up to the city of Franklin. Okay, and I have folks in Portsmouth and in Chesapeake that use that bridge every day, and they're furious. They talk about the toll being $1.84. Okay, for peak usage, but that's just for cars. For trucks, it's almost $8.
$8.
Yes, one way.
So one way. So if you talk about a dump truck, a garbage truck, an 18-wheeler, whatever, it's a massive amount of money that's going to be paid in tolls to use, well, take for instance the downtown tunnel, which they're probably going to put a new coat of paint on. That's all they're doing in the downtown tunnel. They're doing a lot of work on the midtown tunnel. But I've heard from business people all over Hampton Roads about how this is going to impact their business and impact the amount of money that they're going to have to charge their customers, because they're going to have to pass that on.
Right, right.
I just got to tell you, we cannot do another deal like this. The General Assembly has to be involved. This is going to be devastating to our economy. We cannot ever do this again.
Doug Leftwich, was this something that you heard from your constituents during the campaign, and are you still hearing about this issue?
Absolutely. Even though my district doesn't go into there are many people in my district that work within the 78 but travel that corridor. And so, yes, I've heard from constituents about the issue and share the concern and the quite frankly, the criticisms that I've heard my colleagues express today.
Now, I also understand that you've got another bill in that you're co-patroning. It has to do with drug abuse.
Correct.
So tell us about that.
It's I guess kind of called the cannabinoid bill, and Delegate Garrett from Lynchburg is the chief patron of the legislation. But what it does is, and I'll tell you what it is by giving you an example. Each year, the legislature, the General Assembly, adds different chemical formulas to the Schedule 1 of the code to make those compounds illegal. And so when the last amendment was made to add compounds, the state tested about 700 samples that they had confiscated, and only 2% of what they confiscated was found to be legal. Meaning they captured 88% or 98% of the illegal substance. Within 4 months, they tested another 500 samples, and I believe, no, I'm sorry, 88. When in the first time period of the 700 samples, 88 they captured 88%. Within 4 months, they only captured 2%. The bad guys had already tweaked the formulas so much that we weren't capturing the illegal substances. And so what this bill does, its primary thrust, is to give to the Board of Pharmacy the ability to add compounds to that Schedule 1.
I see.
As soon as, instead of having the legislature do it on an annual basis, the Board of Pharmacy can add these drugs to that schedule as they learn about them, which would make them immediately illegal.
Good. Well, hopefully they can do a better job than Major League Baseball does.
I would agree. I would agree.
Delegate Knight, talk to us a little bit more about the importance of the military installations in the area you represent.
Well, you know, we have the Master Jet Base of Oceana, which is totally in my district, and we have Dam Neck, which is where special warfare goes out of, and that's a big protector of the Master Jet Base and of Norfolk Naval Air Station and facilities in Chesapeake, that there are a couple over there. And we just need to do everything that we can for our veterans, because we want them to come through here during their military service, and then when they want to retire, we want them to come back and live in our area. So we put in many veterans bills. We've got a bill that looks like it's going through my subcommittee to bring the Secretary of Public Safety and the Secretariat of Homeland Security and merge them and take that Secretariat away from the Secretary of Military Affairs, because it's a better fit. So we are just doing everything we can to enhance our military and the retirees. We want them from start to finish in our neck of the woods.
And of course, we want them to start new businesses as well.
Absolutely, and that's where workforce training and the like comes in. And you know, we've got our port. We've got a ready-made workforce when they look to retire, because they understand discipline, structure, and processes. And so we've got to really work to build on that. I think our challenge moving forward, quite frankly, is as there are fewer federal dollars flowing into Virginia, we've got to figure a way to reinvent our economy. That's why the announcement on Monday night from Governor McAuliffe about the cyber security, some of the other business, and you really, it's nice to get a big splash when you get this huge investment, but when you get a handful of 50 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 jobs in the $25 to $30 million range, that really helps your economy and really starts to get you back on the track where you need to be. We'd like to make one clarification earlier. The Kane administration started the Midtown Downtown deal. The McDonald administration continued it, and in our opinion, messed it up at the end with how they struck the deal. But no, workforce training is critically important, and I know that we've got Kathy Byron had a bill last year, study resolution, so we're trying to see how we can better utilize those dollars. And there's a lot of money spent every year to retrain the workforce federally, state, and it flows through your local governments. Great.
Now, there seems to be a lot of agreement between the new executive and the members of the General Assembly, with one exception. We want to talk about that for the remaining few minutes, Medicaid. Tell us about the pros and cons, Senator Cosgrove, as you understand it, about why the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, decided not to accept Medicaid funds.
Well, Woody, it's a very complicated issue. There are a lot of people who are uninsured in Virginia, but we have been promised numerous times by the federal government that they will take care of a certain program and they'll pay for it. And then 1 or 2 years later saying, hey, well, you know what, we don't have the money anymore, so you're going to have to take it on. If we take on Medicaid expansion in Virginia for those 400,000 people, and the federal government says, hey, you know, we're going to pay for it. Well, the federal government's borrowing all their money from China right now. You know, their spending is totally out of control. My real fear on Medicaid expansion is, if we do this, we take the federal funds, and in a couple of years, they'll do what they've done in the past and say, sorry, guys, we don't have the money anymore. And what are we going to do? Are we going to take those people off the rolls? We've never done that before. And Chris is going to have to look at a $2 or $3 billion hole in his budget in how to pay for those Medicaid expansion benefits. We also have a Medicaid problem with waste, fraud, and abuse that we've been dealing with for years. And the MERC is put together. It has delegates and senators looking at how to reform Medicaid. And until those reforms are done and codified, as far as I'm concerned, we should never even think about Medicaid expansion in the Commonwealth of Virginia. A lot of people want it, but from a fiscally responsible standpoint, I just cannot see going along with that until we have had all of the reforms and guarantees that the governor's going to get the money from Washington.
Great. Well, the senator had the last words. We don't mind that. But thank you all for being here. Senator Knight, Delegate Leftwich.
Not yet.
Not Senator Knight. Delegate Knight. Senator Cosgrove. I'm promoting all of you today. And Mr. Chairman, Chris Jones. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Woody.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.